I'm Molly Pesci, and this is Barnes & Noble Tagged. His books have sold over 90 million copies and have been translated into 45 languages all over the world. And we have him here. It is the one, the only David Baldacci with his latest thriller, True Blue. You might say David Baldacci has a thriller instinct. His first book, Absolute Power, about a brutal murder involving the president, was an instant bestseller and made into a major motion picture. Now, 17 books later, Baldacci is synonymous with bestseller. Most of his novels are standalone, but his book, The Camel Club, has grown into a multi-part series, and Split Second launched further stories to include former agents Sean King and Michelle Maxwell. His books may be sold in 80 different countries, but today we are thrilled to have the thriller right here with us in the studio to tell us about his latest page-turner, True Blue. David Baldacci, you've been tagged. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And I want you to know I'm a huge fan. I have read all your books, and I love this one as well. But I want to start back a little bit because you've been a lifelong writer your whole life.
Yes.
How did you get into the thriller mystery? Were you writing those as a child? I mean, how did that start?
No, it was very circuitous. I started out as a short story writer. When I was in high school, and I would set my short stories out to the New Yorker and Atlantic Monthly, and of course I was rejected over and over again. And then I started writing screenplays. I got an agent in Los Angeles when I was practicing law in Washington, D.C. Let me tell you, it's very difficult to get an agent in Los Angeles. Most people in Los Angeles don't even know there's a state called Virginia, by the way. So once I convinced them there actually was, then I got an agent, and I thought maybe I'd sell some screenplays and be working as a lawyer during the day. Then I had this idea for The President and a Burglar, and I would walk by the White House every day. It was very near my law office, and my wife and I would ride bikes through, and then it just hit me. Ideas are easy, but then you got to turn them into stories.
Well, exactly.
So that took about 3 years.
Yeah. So many exciting things happen. There's a lot of adventures in your books, and I know that you do your own research. Have you ever gotten yourself in kind of a dicey, a dicey situation? What?
Yeah, well, for this latest one, True Blue, I went out on some walk-alongs and ride-alongs with police officers in really bad areas of D.C., and I was with one guy whose street name is Peanut, and it was just him and me, and we're walking through some really bad areas, and we'd walk past these guys just sitting around, and he'd be like murderer, rapist, carjacker, and he knew all these guys, and they'd all have been in prison, they were out, and he's smoking a cigarette. I'm looking at Peanut like, I wish you'd put that out, because if you drop dead, I'm dead.
That's right.
And as we passed through these guys, he said, so what do you think? And I said, basically, I think you've got on Kevlar, I've got a Bic pen. That's what I think.
One of the things that is kind of a hallmark of a David Baldacci book is that it is a huge page turner. I mean, I literally am, going through it as quickly as possible. Does that happen as you're writing? I mean, you said it took you 3 years to write your first book, but do the characters start speaking? I mean, do you feel like it goes quickly?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, on the one I'm working on now, it took me a while to get into it, and every project is different. Sometimes I don't go elaborate outlines. I can't do that because I'm not smart enough to know on day one everything that's going to go into the book. It needs to evolve. It takes me about 100 pages to realize what my characters are capable of. A character I thought was going to be a major character turned out to be a peripheral character. Didn't have the juice that I thought that character would have when the book first started, and other characters are like, look at me, I'm a much better character, pick me, pick me. So it's an evolutionary process for me, but no, the page-turning aspect doesn't always come when you do the first draft. It may not come with the 10th draft. That's through the editing process where you really, really cull it down to where it needs to be.
Yeah. So let's talk about True Blue. New characters.
Brand new characters, yes. Don't anybody get mad. They're really good characters.
They are. At first I did that. I was like, where are my characters that I know? That's all right. Give us an outline of the story.
There are two principal characters in this book. Mace Perry was an undercover police officer in D.C., and her sister, Beth Perry, is the D.C. police chief. And I did a story for Parade magazine about the real D.C. police chief, Kathy Lanier, and I liked her character so much. She's sort of loosely based on the character in the book. Mace got into trouble. She was framed. She's like a Patty Hearst of the 21st century. She got sent to prison. She's out now. She can't be a cop anymore because she's a felon. She comes back to D.C., wants to rebuild her life. Her sister being the police chief makes it even harder for her. She gets involved in sort of a very mysterious murder at a Georgetown law firm that turns out to sort of be, you think it's going to be a typical homicide, but then it extrapolates out into something much more sinister.
Well, the book is fantastic. It's called True Blue. It is out this week, and such a page turner, just like all your other books. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Here's a tagged close-up from a former fancy fast-track gal who traded in her power suit for the pioneer life and learned how to rustle up some vittles that will have you hollering, Yahoo! Ree Drummond was living the Sex and the City life in LA, but on a chance trip to Oklahoma, she decided to hop off the fast track and fall in love with a guy she calls the Marlboro Man. And how do we know this? She blogs about it nearly every day on her hugely popular website, thepioneerwoman.com. Ree, now a mother of 4, has changed all of her ways, including how she cooks. Here is her just-released The Pioneer Woman Cooks, Recipes from an Accidental Country Girl. The Pioneer Woman Cooks is a homespun collection of photography, rural stories, and scrumptious recipes that have defined Ree's experience in the country. She shares many of the delicious cowboy-tested recipes she learned to make during her years as an accidental ranch wife, including ribeye steak with whiskey cream sauce, lasagna, fried chicken, Patsy's blackberry cobbler, and cinnamon rolls. And in the words of Ree Drummond herself, I hope it encourages even the most harried urban cook to slow down, relish the joys of family, nature, and great food, and enjoy life. And that's my tagged close-up. Every week, I take a look at the offerings in the world of books, movies, and music. And this week, we have some hauntingly good tags, just in time for Halloween. Shining brightly at number 5 is New Moon, the original motion picture soundtrack from the sequel to Twilight. It offers an impressive roster of alt-rockers, including Muse and Death Cab for Cutie. Always a favorite and back for Halloween at number 4 is Twilight on DVD. Now, watch the movie as many times as you have read the hugely popular book. Very handy at number 3 is The Vampire's Handbook, a guide for the recently turned creature of the night. Author Janet Ginsburg helps those vampire newbies cut through all the misinformation and get to the heart of how to correctly live the life of the undead. Enticing at number 2 is Tempted, from the mother-daughter writing team PC and Kristen Cast. This is the 6th in the House of Night series, in which High Priestess in training, Zoe Redbird, continues her courageous struggle for her life, heart, and soul. Looking lively at number 1 is Dracula, the Undead, the sequel to the original classic, written by Bram Stoker's great-grandnephew, Dacre Stoker. Based on Bram Stoker's original handwritten notes, Dracula, the Undead begins 25 years after Dracula crumbled into dust. And those are my top tags for this week. Well, I'm ready for Halloween. My treats are all these great books. The only trick is, which one will I read first? See you next time on Barnes & Noble Tagged.